The gallery has always been a central part of my experience here in Vancouver. And I would say that art galleries in general are a place where I feel very at home. That is not necessarily a natural feeling for everybody. I think sometimes art galleries can feel cold or a space of the elite. But I really feel like galleries are a home for artists and that they need to have a sense of welcoming and hospitality to the artists in the city, because the work that the artists are creating and that the gallery is supporting, it's all woven together, and facilitating strong arts communities, that is only a good, wonderful thing for community in general. I am Jillian Christmas, and I am the inaugural poet in residence at the Vancouver Art Gallery. I've been here since the fall and plan to be here into the spring. And part of my work here has been to have poetic reflection and interaction with the art that's in the space and also the people that are in the space, and to create inspired by all of the incredible art that lives here and that moves through here.
I'm Sirish Rao. I'm the Director of Public Engagement and Learning at the Vancouver Art Gallery. I've been in this position a year, and one of the greatest delights for me has been to have Jillian Christmas as poet in residence. How this came about was that Jillian was coming to the gallery anyway to sit amongst the art and write poetry, and saw it as a sort of a place of solace, a place of inspiration.
I had found myself spending a lot of time in the gallery over the last year or so. I was lucky to come in to the gallery. It was actually for a really cute date, but and we ended up buying the monthly passes, and I just really decided that I wanted to take advantage of it and make sure that I was infusing my life with as much art as I could. So instead of sitting in a coffee shop and writing, or sitting in my apartment, I thought a lovely change of context would be to come to the gallery and to just write in front of these beautiful, iconic, like powerful images, sculptures, and be in conversation with the art. And yeah, and that is where they found me, in the gallery.
When Jillian and I and Stephanie Bokenfor, who's the adult program coordinator here, sat in the bistro at the gallery dreaming of what a residency could look like, it seemed very important for the first residency to be a poet. And there's something particular a poet brings, something particular about being able to get to the essence of the human experience, that economy, that surgical efficiency of just saying what needs to be said. And it seemed that we needed to invite that kind of reflection, that kind of introspection, as the gallery goes through a moment of transformation, as we ask ourselves, what is an art gallery in the 21st century? Inviting a poet to comment not only on the art and artists around, but also on the institution itself, is almost like having an artist who's also a psychologist. It lays bare, in a way, our questionings, our moments of realizations, our reckoning with ourselves. Of course, we are an institution with a colonial legacy and with an infinite future. And so how do we navigate that change? There has, for a long time, been the idea of the museum or the art gallery as a temple or a fortress. And I think all over the world, and especially for this institution, we're going through a moment of transformation where we're saying, what can we be? Especially as we look at a new building, a new way of being. It invites reflection, it invites transformation, it invites change, and infinite possibility. And when you have all of those at a moment, I think a poet brings all those things to us: deep reflection, and the capacity to dream, and the power to heal. And we've seen that in effect. You walk through the gallery, you see Jillian chatting with audience members, with school children, with security, and every one of those interactions is filled with joy, is filled with delight, and is filled with the kind of honesty that she brings to her work.
To step into the role of the first ever poet in residence is quite a big deal. I think for me, it also signals some shift in the culture of the city, the internal culture and institutions and art organizations in the city. But because I say that specifically because the work that I do is maybe different than one might imagine for a poet. You know, a lot of the work that I do is community gathering and resourcing and connecting work. And yes, poetry is all in and around and through it. But it actually requires a lot of agility and slowness and listening. And I think that taking the chance to invite a poet whose process is one that is sort of infused with disruption, the energy of disruption, into the gallery, I think that is a very brave and new approach to a space that primarily focuses on visual art. As like a Black, queer, polyamorous, disabled, fat, and like human, I think it's a critical piece to signal to other artists in and outside of the city what is possible in this space, like who the space can serve, who can create work and connection and joy for, like who and how this place can evolve into a living part of our communities. I definitely have always been drawn to art galleries in whatever city that I go to. And the Vancouver Art Gallery has been quite a place of inspiration and connection for me since I've come to the city. I do have a sense that in the gallery, a lot of things are possible. And I think I also have an understanding that that sort of white and sometimes sterile space can be one that is not very welcoming to people, or that feels like, you know, don't put your fingers there, like sit on the plastic kind of vibes. But I think for me, there has been a long process of shifting my perspective on that. And it has really been a process of understanding myself, my own value, my own power, and my entitlement, I will say, but I want to say that in a sense of like, I think that all artists are entitled to this space, you know? I think that all the people in Vancouver should feel like they can come into this space, like this is for them. And yeah, there's no like exclusive sort of element to this because art is for all of us, you know? And this space is for all of us. I think for a lot of people, poetry is like something they dealt with in high school and never had to like glance back at again, or maybe something that they encounter in rarefied moments, perhaps on the bus, a little like poetry in transit or something like that. But maybe not something that they engage with on a very regular and intentional basis. And it felt important to shake that up a little bit. And it also felt important to notice sort of like what was happening in the city, in the world, internally for myself, and in reflection to the art that is on display here. And for me, what came up was a lot of grief, you know, in my own experience in, you know, being here at the gallery and at times stepping out into the, you know, gatherings and actions for Palestine, or stepping in from the actions into the gallery. And yeah, just like feeling the weight of the collective grief that is hanging in the air around all of us. And, you know, so I think for a lot of people, delight is not the natural conclusion for that, but I really think that we as a society have a problem with labeling emotions or subjugating certain emotions, you know, like making them the lesser of the less desired emotions. And we want the delight, of course, which is like an extreme joy and happiness. And I think what I have learned is that we don't get the delight. We don't get the extreme of one without the other. I think that if we allow ourselves to lean into the very good, very natural emotions that we have, we get those beautiful moments, you know? We get the expansiveness of the human experience. For me, to get to delight, we go through all of it. One of the works that I've been creating in the gallery has been a grief altar, a communal grief altar, that has invited people to offer their grief, their sorrow, over people, things, times, moments, parts of self lost. And I think one of the first questions around it was, is this a shrine? And while you could mistake the two for each other, the distinction for me is that a shrine is a place that is relatively static, that does not maybe expect a lot of change, and that doesn't necessitate a lot of movement. But an altar is a place of work. It's a place where process is happening. There is some element of aliveness and decay and shift. And, you know, for me, that was the important thing to have here. And so I kind of think of, and maybe this is just of my own creation, but I think of museums sort of like shrines. And I think of art galleries more like altars. I think they are a place of movement and a place that asks us to like shift and bend and expand. Primarily, I want to build relationships in the gallery, you know, not just between me and the folks that I'm interacting with, but between people who come to the gallery together, between staff, between, you know, myself and like the security folks or like the folks at the front desk. I think that these kinds of tethers in community are so important in literally keeping us alive. I know that because I have been on the edge, you know, and I have been in isolation. And community care is the thing that saves us. And so I want people to remember each other. I want people to talk to each other. I want people to ask questions. And I want people to not be afraid to ask for things to be different than they are. I think all of that is like necessary world building. And I want people to feel empowered and, you know, justified in doing it. This is what we have the opportunity to do, is to allow this building, this space that has held so many things, to hold us and to hold space for those really important processes that need us to be together for them to happen in a good way. So it has been really incredible to be able to host that kind of work in this space that also needs community in order to come alive.
In a way, this opens up the possibility for future residencies. What would a dancer in residence look like? What would dancers invite us to do to reimagine how art is responded to in an embodied way? What would a playwright in residence be like? Could the gallery be the site for theater? These are the excitements that now occupy us as we think of what could future residencies look like. This has paved the way for a lot more possibilities where other disciplines, other ways of seeing and being can influence the way a gallery sees itself. What Jillian has done has been simply to converse, to bring to every interaction she has a sense of delight, a sense of healing, because healing has been very much central to her residency and to a lot of the work that we have set ourselves to do at the gallery. Can art be a healing force? And she has asked us to look at grief, at ritual grieving, at communal grieving, and then dreaming. And in many ways, it seems to me that she has effected something not unlike the art of kintsugi, which is the Japanese art form in which a piece of ceramic is broken and fused together again with seams of gold. And so the cracks are visible, are honored, in fact, tenderly cared for and put back again. And all of that is transparent and there to see. That transformation is deeply moving, incredibly beautiful, and the gift that Jillian Christmas has given us.